Silence can be deafening, and within its depths lies a powerful tool of manipulation: silent treatment. In powerful response, winning against silent treatment, we embark on a revealing journey into the intricate web of emotional control exercised through silence. This is not merely a communication guide. It is an exploration of the dark psychological tactics often wielded to undermine our sense of self. As we uncover the motivations behind this troubling behavior, you will learn to reclaim your voice and strength, transforming your response from vulnerability into empowerment. Empower yourself to break through the silence that seeks to bind you. Powerful response: winning against silent treatment, written and published by Stealth Psychology. Chapter 1. Breaking the silence, understanding silent treatment. Imagine a scenario where a loved one suddenly withdraws, leaving you to navigate a chilling realm of uncertainty. You walk on eggshells, desperate for affection and validation, yet faced only with cold silence. This behavior often cloaks a deeper, more sinister motive: a calculated act of psychological manipulation. The manipulator's ultimate goal is to regain power and control, ensnaring their victim in a web of emotional turmoil. By wielding silence as a weapon, they expertly cultivate an environment where discomfort reigns, compelling the targeted individual to bend to their will. Victims of silent treatment frequently find themselves in a crippling cycle of self-doubt and anxiety, unaware that they are being drawn deeper into a form of emotional and psychological captivity. What makes this manipulation so insidious is its subtlety. It may masquerade as a temporary withdrawal or the result of external circumstances, all while eroding the victim's self-esteem. Many fail to recognize the danger until the bonds of emotional dependency tighten, leaving them vulnerable and confused, often blaming themselves for the hostility they cannot quite understand. In this maze of silence, the target becomes lost, struggling to regain footing as their emotional landscape shifts. Manipulators skillfully exploit this disorientation, fostering isolation and emotional fragility. Emotional control is the prize, and the victim seldom realizes they are engaging in a contest of power dynamics until their sense of agency has been significantly diminished. The manipulator's deliberate choice to impose silence serves to distort reality, leading the victim to question their worth, influence, and perceptions. As the silence stretches into days or weeks, the emotional toll mounts. Anxiety and desperation mutate into a landscape of self-recrimination. Victims come to believe the manipulator's quiet disdain is justified, mistakenly equating it with their own perceived flaws. They may reach for apologies, explanations, or excuses, desperately seeking a return to the comfort and approval they once enjoyed. This cycle not only perpetuates the manipulator's control, but also reinforces a detrimental belief system in the victim: that their emotions are not valid and their voices must be stifled to maintain the relationship. Acknowledging this cycle of silent treatment is the first step toward liberation. Understanding the dynamics behind it can transform how we perceive and respond to emotional manipulation. With awareness comes the power to challenge these destructive patterns. It is crucial to establish a framework for recognizing silent treatment as a tactic rather than an isolated act of discontent. By unraveling the layer of control embedded within this behavior, you can begin to reclaim your voice and self-worth, standing firm against the silence that seeks to keep you confined. In this chapter, we will delve into the various forms of silent treatment, unmask the psychological motives at play, and illuminate the path to recognizing the signs of manipulation. Discovering this hidden truth is essential for breaking free from emotional chains, allowing you to move toward a mindset that fosters resilience and empowerment. Understanding silent treatment is not just about receiving acknowledgement. It is about reclaiming your narrative and rewriting the script of your emotional life for good. Silent treatment, while seemingly an invocation of personal autonomy, wreaks havoc on the emotional state of its victims. The gradual withdrawal from communication not only triggers feelings of abandonment, but also spirals into anxiety and depression. Research from the University of Queensland reveals that social isolation, such as that instigated by silent treatment, can elicit a physiological stress response, damaging both mental and physical health. Individuals subjected to this form of manipulation often find their decision-making capabilities compromised. The pervasive fear of inciting further conflict leads them to second-guess their choices, opting to appease their manipulator instead of trusting their instincts. This constant state of apprehension fosters a toxic cycle, where the victim's internal compass becomes clouded by the manipulator's agenda. Real-life case studies illustrate this dynamic. Consider Emma, a dedicated employee who faced periodic silent treatment from her boss during performance reviews. Each time her boss withdrew communication, Emma felt increasingly anxious and uncertain about her role. In her quest to win back approval, she neglected her own needs, working longer hours and compromising her values. This not only affected her career decisions, but also strained her relationships outside of work, as she poured her emotional energy into deciphering her boss's cues rather than nurturing her friendships and family ties. Over time, Emma's self-esteem dwindled, making her more susceptible to her boss's manipulations, demonstrating how silent treatment can entrap individuals in a cycle of emotional turmoil. The potency of silent treatment lies in its insidious nature. People often fall into this trap because it plays on their deepest insecurities. The absence of direct confrontation allows the manipulator to maintain control while simultaneously leaving the victim questioning their own worth. In a world where emotional validation is intertwined with our sense of identity, the fear of rejection can steer individuals to endure prolonged periods of silence, dismissing the abuse as a minor inconvenience rather than a detrimental cycle. According to psychologist Aaron Lewis, silent treatment can create a hostile environment, fostering a sense of powerlessness that reinforces the manipulator's control. Victims may cling to false hopes of resolution, believing that their efforts to clarify misunderstandings will bring their loved ones back into the fold. This psychological dance can escalate, further complicating interpersonal dynamics. Relationships become characterized not by healthy dialogue, but by unspoken resentments festering beneath the surface. Over time, unaddressed grievances may lead to emotional disconnection, as victims learn to suppress their feelings in a bid to restore equilibrium. This shifts the paradigm. Communication becomes synonymous with conflict, and silence emerges as the perceived path of least resistance. As silent treatment obliterates meaningful interactions, the affective ties within relationships weaken, making future conversations fraught with the tension of past misunderstandings. Recognizing these emotional repercussions is imperative for arming oneself against manipulation. This understanding can empower individuals to dismantle the dangerous allure of silence in favor of transparency and open dialogue. Being armed with this knowledge creates an opportunity for growth, steering people away from the shadows of emotional control and toward healthier relationship dynamics. The urgency for awareness cannot be overstated. As we delve deeper into the next part of this chapter, we will uncover the hidden warning signs of silent treatment that most people overlook. Understanding these signs can serve as your first line of defense against becoming ensnared in this emotional web, allowing you to navigate your relationships with sturdier foundations. Manipulators possess a keen ability to identify their targets, often choosing individuals who exhibit signs of vulnerability or a strong desire for approval. Their radar is finely tuned to detect people who will likely acquiesce to emotional demands or exhibit a high tolerance for discomfort. This can be manifested in a subtle but pervasive approach, watching for behaviors such as the need to please others, lack of assertiveness, or an inclination to maintain harmony at all costs. Take the case of David, a young adult navigating his first serious relationship. His partner, Sarah, quickly discerned his eagerness to please. Sarah would intermittently withdraw affection, leaving David in a state of confusion and unrest. Recognizing her own emotional power, she would then offer small gestures of warmth, intertwining them with long periods of silence. Over time, David became increasingly anxious about Sarah's moods, convinced that his actions were the catalyst for her withdrawal. As a result, he attempted to mold his behavior to fit her expectations, spiraling deeper into a cycle of self-doubt and conditional love. This scenario isn't unique. It reflects a wider pattern where manipulators leverage their target's insecurities to exert control. The subtle psychological shifts that occur during such manipulations are both fascinating and alarming. Initially, there is often a sense of cognitive dissonance as the target strives to reconcile their reality with the manipulation being imposed upon them. For instance, when Sarah engages David with periods of affectionate warmth juxtaposed against silence, he experiences both relief and confusion. Each denial of emotional closeness creates a heightened sense of anxiety that leads him to question his perception of their relationship. Eventually, victims may begin to internalize the conflict, believing they are the problem rather than recognizing the manipulation at play. Another case is seen in the workplace, where Helen, a highly competent employee, becomes the focus of her supervisor's silent treatment. When she successfully completes a project, her boss oscillates between praise and barren silence. This emotional unpredictability pushes Helen to seek constant validation, prompting her to work longer hours to prove her worth. The manipulator capitalizes on her need for acknowledgement, reinforcing a belief that her self-esteem hinges on external approval. As her mental health deteriorates under the weight of continuous uncertainty and fear of reprimand, the once determined professional becomes paralyzed by her boss's silent control tactics. In both cases, the covert nature of manipulation leads to a gradual erosion of the victim's self-concept. The manipulation is not always blatant. It can stem from subtle shifts in tone, prolonged eye contact, or even the absence of dialogue. These techniques create clouded perceptions where victims learn to ignore their instincts and instead cater to the emotional demands imposed upon them. Over time, the pressure to stay compliant becomes unbearable, and victims find their sense of identity deeply intertwined with the perceptions of their manipulators. Understanding these insidious tactics is not merely an academic exercise. It is a vital form of self-defense. Recognizing the patterns allows individuals to reclaim their autonomy, making it possible to identify red flags and respond assertively rather than sequenced by fear. Knowledge of these dynamics is empowering, paving the way for clearer boundaries and healthier relationships. As we transition to the next part of this chapter, we will explore how emotional manipulation escalates, further ensnaring victims in cycles of control. By equipping yourself with this awareness, you lay the groundwork for resistance, ultimately freeing yourself from the chains of silent treatment and the emotional turmoil it engenders. To break free from the dark psychological tactic of silent treatment, it is essential to adopt a counter-strategy that empowers you to reclaim your voice and assert your boundaries. The cornerstone of liberation lies in recognizing that this manipulation thrives in an atmosphere of uncertainty. When faced with silence, your instincts might lead you to question your worth or to second-guess your perceptions. However, embracing your inherent intuition is crucial to dismantling the manipulator's power. Start by cultivating clarity in your thoughts and emotions. Engage in reflective practices such as journaling or meditation that allow you to process your feelings without the haze of external opinions. Record instances when the silent treatment occurs. Pay attention to your emotional reactions, discerning patterns that may reveal the manipulator's intent. By articulating your experiences, you empower yourself with concrete evidence of the unhealthy dynamics at play. This practice not only builds your self-awareness, but also fortifies your understanding of what constitutes acceptable behavior in your relationships. Trusting your instincts means acknowledging that your feelings are valid and deserve to be expressed. When faced with silence, resist the urge to appease the manipulator by chasing after approval or understanding. Instead, assert your need for open, respectful communication. This requires courage. But remember, silence serves as a strategic device to maintain control, and by refusing to engage in this game, you inherently re-establish your autonomy. Practice expressing your feelings regardless of the manipulator's response. For example, calmly state, "I feel unsettled when I don't hear from you." Open communication is important for our relationship. This simple declaration serves as a powerful boundary that conveys your expectations clearly, redirecting the power dynamics away from the manipulator. Throughout this journey, focus on reforming your mindset. Often, manipulators thrive on the fear of conflict. By reframing your perspective, you can see that confrontation aimed at re-establishing healthy communication is not only necessary but beneficial. Acknowledge that the discomfort of addressing these issues now holds far more promise for emotional freedom than enduring silence and confusion. Empowerment comes from a state of clarity and assertiveness, and as you practice these strategies, you will observe a remarkable evolution in your interactions. Rather than allowing the manipulator's silent treatment to dictate your emotional state, you will cultivate a newfound resilience rooted in self-worth. Remember that regaining control over your narrative is the ultimate act of defiance against those who seek to undermine it. As we transition to the next chapter, we will delve deeper into understanding the emotional traps that victims often find themselves in, including the psychological repercussions that can hinder personal growth. Recognizing these traps is an essential step for anyone wishing to break free from manipulative dynamics. If you found value in this chapter and are eager to further fortify your emotional defenses against psychological manipulation, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology. Your engagement helps us develop content that empowers you and others on this journey. Share your thoughts, personal experiences, or suggestions for future topics in the comments, as your voice matters in our growing community. Once you comprehend these tactics, you will be equipped to interact with confidence, unyielding in your determination. Your voice will no longer be muffled by silence, and you will never be controlled in the same way again. Chapter 2. The Emotional Trap. Why it hurts so much. Picture a scenario involving Jenna, a talented artist who becomes deeply involved with a charismatic individual, Alex. Initially, their connection feels electrifying, filled with admiration and appreciation. However, as time progresses, Alex begins to subtly undermine Jenna's confidence. What once was adoration transforms into criticism cloaked in affection, and Jenna finds herself caught in an emotional whirlwind. Alex employs manipulation by praising Jenna's work one moment and harshly critiquing it the next. This emotional roller coaster is both intoxicating and debilitating, leaving Jenna questioning her worth and ability. At the heart of this emotional trap lies the manipulator's ultimate goal: absolute control. By skillfully undermining Jenna's confidence, Alex seeks to assert dominance over her life and decisions. The mechanism of this manipulation is cunning and layered, and Jenna slowly begins to internalize the distorted feedback as a reflection of her inadequacy. Emotional control is insidious, often disguised as care, leaving victims grappling with uncertainty regarding their self-worth and decision-making capabilities until they realize they have been ensnared by manipulation. Victims like Jenna often fail to recognize the depths of their entrapment. Initially, the affection masked as criticism might seem innocuous. After all, partners are supposed to support one another. Yet the emotional trap grows more complex as it intertwines affection with emotional abuse. Jenna's reality becomes distorted, and she consequently begins to doubt her talents and decisions, believing that her value is tethered to Alex's approval. She is unaware that the emotional upheaval she experiences stems from a deliberate strategy designed to break her spirit. Until she acknowledges the emotional toll this dynamic exacts, she remains entrapped in a cycle where her feelings are relentlessly manipulated. The pain of this hidden manipulation bleeds into every aspect of a victim's life. The emotional exhaustion fuels anxiety, triggering a series of reactions that leave them unmoored. In Jenna's case, as her enthusiasm for creating art diminishes under the weight of Alex's unwarranted critiques, she finds herself withdrawing from friends and opportunities. Social isolation becomes an almost subconscious choice, as she worries about others' perceptions, fearing that they will side with her manipulative partner. The emotional trap extends its reach, dragging Jenna further away from the life she once cherished, leaving her isolated and desolate. The psychological impact of such manipulation can be profoundly damaging. Studies indicate that victims often experience symptoms akin to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, due to the emotional turbulence of their relationships. As unfolded in Jenna's story, countless individuals become ensnared in this emotional trap, losing not only their sense of self, but also their connections to the world around them. The toll is heavy and often goes unnoticed until it becomes a numbing realization that the peace they once experienced has been systematically dismantled. Recognizing the emotional trap and its effects is imperative in our pursuit of liberation. The more we understand the dynamics at play, the less vulnerable we become to their pull. With every scenario we dissect, we inch closer to wresting back the power that manipulators seek to claim for themselves. As we continue to navigate this chapter, we will shed light on the underlying reasons why psychological manipulation inflicts such profound harm on its victims, providing clarity to those ensnared in the grip of emotional control. The emotional trap ensnares its victims in a relentless cycle of pain and confusion, deeply affecting their emotional well-being, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. The ongoing manipulation results in a profound emotional disorientation, where individuals feel overwhelmed by self-doubt and insecurity. For example, consider Jake, a once assertive professional who enters a relationship with Leah, who employs a pattern of conditional affection. As compliments are contingent upon Jake's actions, he begins to tailor his behavior, desperately attempting to meet Leah's shifting expectations. Over time, this adaptive behavior strains Jake's self-esteem, leading him to consider himself unworthy and incapable of adequately fulfilling Leah's needs. Research conducted by the American Psychological Association reveals that individuals in manipulative relationships often experience increased levels of anxiety and decreased overall life satisfaction. The incessant emotional turmoil creates a fog where victims struggle to make rational decisions rooted in their values, instead choosing paths based on the fear of upsetting their manipulative partner. This often results in them sacrificing personal ambitions and desires, contributing to a diminishing sense of identity. Jake increasingly finds himself incapacitated by the need to seek Leah's approval, neglecting his own dreams and aspirations, while undermining his self-worth. The repercussions also extend to relationships beyond the manipulative one. As emotional exhaustion leads to social withdrawal, victims often alienate themselves from family and friends, fearing that their experiences of manipulation will be belittled or blamed. This isolation becomes a coping mechanism, albeit a toxic one. Jake, for instance, distances himself from his friends, avoiding gatherings where he might expose the fragility of his relationship with Leah. This withdrawal breeds further loneliness, perpetuating the cycle of emotional dependency on Leah's approval and rendering him more susceptible to her manipulations. People often fall prey to such emotional traps due to a complex interplay of factors, including their backgrounds, attachment styles, and personal experiences. Many victims have conditioned themselves to prioritize the needs of others over their own, having been raised to believe that love must be earned rather than inherently valued. This foundational belief can make them unwittingly blind to manipulation. Psychological research indicates that individuals with anxious attachment styles tend to feel insecure in their relationships, making them vulnerable to tactics that exacerbate those insecurities. Jake, having grown up in a household where approval was given conditionally, finds himself reverting to childhood patterns. As an adult, he feels compelled to earn Leah's affection in the same way he did with his parents. Understanding the intricacies of emotional manipulation is critical for breaking free from the shackles of the emotional trap. The urgency to recognize these dynamics cannot be overstated, as awareness can be the stepping stone toward reclaiming one's sense of self and agency. As we delve deeper into this chapter, we will uncover hidden warning signs that often go unnoticed in manipulative relationships. Identifying these signs can equip readers with the necessary tools to recognize and defend against these psychological tactics, ultimately steering them toward healthier emotional landscapes. Through increased awareness and understanding, victims like Jake can flicker a light on the dangers that go unchecked, setting the path to empowerment. In our next exploration, we will illuminate those crucial signs that signal emotional manipulation, providing clarity and enabling the reader to safeguard their emotional well-being with confidence and discernment. Manipulators possess an acute ability to identify their targets, often gravitating toward individuals who exhibit specific vulnerabilities or traits. These traits may include a strong desire for validation, a high sensitivity to emotional cues, or a propensity for caretaking. This predilection for compassionate individuals enables manipulators to weave their strategies with precision. Take the example of Linda, a nurturing friend with a history of always putting others first. When she became involved with Mark, he quickly picked up on her accommodating nature and began to exploit her kindness. He would skillfully oscillate between affection and withdrawal, keeping Linda in a constant state of worry about whether she was meeting his needs. Mark's approach wasn't characterized by overt aggression, making it challenging for Linda and those around her to discern the manipulation taking place. Instead, he masked his tactics in the guise of love and concern. His intermittent affection cultivated dependence, compelling Linda to continually seek his approval. This subtle interplay of behavior exemplifies how manipulators exploit emotional bandwidth. In a perceived loving relationship, victims often fail to recognize the emotional erosion occurring within them until they find themselves genuinely enmeshed in a toxic dynamic. As the manipulation deepens, so too do the subtle psychological shifts within the victim. Initially, Linda felt uplifted by Mark's attention, but the sporadic silence he introduced soon led to profound confusion. This confusion gradually morphed into self-doubt as Linda began to question her worth and actions with every emotional withdrawal Mark executed. At first, she rationalized his silence as personal stress or fatigue, but as it continued, she started scrutinizing her every action and hygiene to ascertain why he might be upset. This internal dialogue, once filled with self-assurance, gradually transformed into a pernicious narrative underscored by fear of inadequacy. Real-life case studies reveal that this pattern is pervasive across various contexts. Consider Jonathan, who works in a high-pressure environment where his manager frequently undermines his confidence. Jonathan's manager takes note of his dedication and work ethic and begins to capitalize on this by offering selective praise while introducing cut-downs that seem well-meaning. "You did really well on that presentation, but I expected better and think it could have been more polished." As this cycle continues, Jonathan loses sight of his capabilities, questioning his professional competence and feeling an intense fear of failing to meet expectations. This emotional sabotage not only affects workplace performance, but bleeds into his confidence in personal relationships as well, sealing off avenues for genuine support. Understanding how these dynamics manifest in different situations is crucial for creating preemptive strategies against future manipulations. People who exhibit nurturing tendencies or possess an intrinsic commitment to keeping the peace are often prime targets. The nuances of manipulation are particularly damaging because they often unfold in such a way that victims are not only blindsided but also disarmed emotionally. Recognizing these tactics becomes critical for anyone who wishes to protect their emotional well-being from similar situations. Realizing the underlying mechanisms of emotional manipulation is the first step toward resistance. Once individuals can identify the signs and patterns inherent in these dynamics, they can safeguard themselves against the escalating control that often ensnares their lives. In the ensuing section, we will delve into how manipulation intensifies, deepening the cycle of control and leading victims into precarious emotional territories. This understanding is foundational for breaking free from emotional bondage, setting the stage for a journey toward empowerment and resilience. Breaking free from the dark psychological tactics of manipulation starts with a strategic counter-approach that focuses on empowering yourself to reclaim your clarity and autonomy. The bedrock of this liberation lies in recognizing that manipulative tactics thrive in ambiguity and uncertainty. When you become uncertain about your feelings, thoughts, and decisions, you're simultaneously handing over control to the manipulator. Therefore, it is essential to regain clarity in order to dismantle the manipulation directed at you. One effective strategy is to establish boundaries with yourself and others. This first requires introspection. Take the time to identify what emotional experiences are acceptable to you and what are not. Begin by journaling your feelings at the end of each day. Reflect on interactions that left you feeling diminished or uneasy. As you document your experiences, start delineating your emotional thresholds. This practice not only helps you to become more in tune with your instinctive reactions, but also allows you to visualize your emotional landscape with clarity. By articulating what feels supportive versus what feels damaging, you empower yourself to draw clear lines when behaviors begin to cross those boundaries. Aligned with this boundary setting is the necessity of developing a robust support system. Reach out to trusted friends, family members, or professionals who understand your situation and can offer constructive perspectives. When faced with uncertainty, these impartial voices can help ground your thoughts. Engage your network by sharing not only your challenges, but also the small victories as you assert your self-advocacy. This positive reinforcement can cultivate resilience over time, reminding you that you are not alone in navigating an emotionally tumultuous environment. Moreover, trust your instincts. Your intuition serves as a powerful compass in discerning manipulative behavior. If something feels wrong, it likely is. Echoing the example of Linda from earlier, when she started feeling disoriented by Mark's emotional swings, recognizing that discomfort would have provided a signal to reassess her circumstances. Cultivating an awareness of these internal signals can help you respond proactively rather than reactively. Consciously reinforce the idea that your feelings are valid, and that seeking clarity by confronting uncomfortable emotions is a skill worth developing. As you practice these strategies, a transformative shift occurs in how you perceive external influences. Rather than allowing others to dictate your emotional responses, you reclaim your narrative. This self-empowerment reduces the grip of manipulation, opening pathways for healthier relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. Victims of emotional manipulation often underestimate the power of asserting their needs, ultimately rendering themselves susceptible to continued emotional entrapment. As we prepare to navigate into the next chapter, we will delve into how manipulation escalates into deeper cycles of control, examining the psychological mechanisms that captivate victims further. Understanding these dimensions is crucial for anyone seeking to fortify their emotional boundaries against persistent manipulation. If you found value in this chapter and are eager to continue developing your emotional defenses, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology. Your engagement is vital for fostering content that empowers our community. Please like this video and share your thoughts, experiences, or suggestions for where we can grow together in the comments. Once you grasp these tactics, you will emerge with knowledge that protects you from falling into similar traps. With this understanding, you will never be controlled in the same way again. Embrace your resilience and take the next steps toward a life of emotional autonomy. Chapter 3: Shifting Power. Taking back your control. Imagine a scenario where Sam, a vibrant and energetic individual, becomes romantically involved with Tara, whose suave demeanor and charming words initially sweep him off his feet. Over time, Tara begins using an insidious form of psychological manipulation, subtly steering conversations to make Sam doubt his perspective. Whenever they discuss important topics, she shifts the focus to his perceived shortcomings, reminding him of past failures and weaving a narrative that places her in a superior light. This manipulation builds her emotional control over him, ensnaring Sam in a cycle of self-doubt and defensiveness. Tara's ultimate goal is not merely to win arguments, it is to gain supremacy in the dynamics of their relationship, fostering dependence while eroding Sam's sense of self. Each time Tara redirects the conversation back to his flaws, Sam grows increasingly hesitant to voice his thoughts and feelings, fearing backlash and diminishing connection. What initially feels like benign advice or constructive criticism gradually morphs into a toxic strategy designed to undermine his confidence. It is a classic case of shifting power, where Tara gains control through the quiet tyranny of manipulation. Yet Sam remains unaware of how thoroughly entangled he has become in this emotional bind. Victims like Sam often fail to recognize the full extent of their entrapment until the threads of manipulation have woven tightly around them. He starts isolating himself from close friends and family, believing that they will only agree with Tara and further his feelings of inadequacy. The erosion of his autonomy goes unnoticed, as each small compromise appears trivial in the wake of Tara's persuasive wiles. Over time, he grows accustomed to deferring his emotions to keep the peace, slowly sacrificing his identity. Research indicates that individuals subjected to psychological manipulation often find the shift in power dynamics baffling. To an outside observer, it may seem obvious that Tara's behavior is not in Sam's best interest. However, those entangled in such relationships often cannot see the manipulation for what it truly is. Their emotional roadmap becomes increasingly obscured, leading to confusion and an unwillingness to confront the uncomfortable truth of their reality. The longer the manipulation continues unchecked, the more natural it becomes for the victim to accept their diminished capacity to communicate effectively and assertively. Additionally, the insidious nature of shifting power can extend beyond romantic relationships. Consider the workplace environment where Mike, a dedicated employee, finds himself subjected to the manipulative tactics of an overbearing supervisor. Each time Mike proposes an idea, his supervisor skillfully pivots the conversation, undermining his suggestions and positioning herself as the fountain of wisdom. Eventually, Mike feels discouraged from contributing further, falling silent in meetings, and allowing the supervisor to dominate discussions. The whisper of his original enthusiasm fades, a casualty of unnoticed manipulation. Understanding the mechanisms behind such shifting power dynamics is crucial for recognizing when these tactics are at play in one's own life. As we explore this chapter, we will uncover the subtleties of power shifts and how such manipulation can exploit our vulnerabilities, contributing to emotional disempowerment. Acknowledging this hidden truth is essential for anyone seeking to reclaim their voice and agency within their relationships. By shining a light on these tactics, we can begin unraveling the chains of manipulation that seek to bind us, positioning ourselves toward empowerment and clarity. The shifting power dynamics inherent in manipulative relationships exert a profound effect on victims, impacting their emotions, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. When Sam becomes ensnared in Tara's psychological tactics, the immediate result is emotional confusion. As Tara continually undermines his confidence, Sam experiences a debilitating roller coaster of emotions, oscillating between disbelief and despair as he tries to reconcile his self-image with the negative feedback he receives. He begins to internalize her criticism, leading him to doubt his capabilities not only in the relationship, but also in other areas of his life. Research from the Journal of Social Psychology reveals that individuals subjected to emotional manipulation often develop an increased sense of anxiety and decreased overall life satisfaction. For Sam, this translates into a constant state of hypervigilance, where he scrutinizes every word and action to gauge Tara's mood. This mental preoccupation severely hampers his decision-making abilities, as he grows less inclined to voice his opinions or pursue his interests for fear of inciting disapproval. Instead of making choices rooted in his own values and desires, he begins to prioritize Tara's preferences over his own, perpetuating a cycle that skews his decision-making process. Furthermore, relationships outside of the manipulative dynamic suffer as well. Sam may withdraw from friends or family members, fearing they will judge his choices or side with Tara, thus diminishing his social support system. This withdrawal leaves him isolated, unable to seek counsel or perspective from those who might recognize the manipulation at play. As personal connections dissolve under the weight of Tara's influence, Sam's feedback loops become constricted solely within her realm of control, intensifying his dependence on her validation. Self-esteem takes a particularly severe hit in the face of such manipulation. Those like Sam, who initially may have had a strong sense of self, find their self-worth eroded over time, replaced by a diminished sense of identity that aligns with their manipulator's perspective. Data from the National Institute of Mental Health shows that individuals in controlling relationships report significantly lower self-esteem levels than those in healthier ones. Sam's confidence plummets as he begins to see himself through Tara's critical lens, believing that any shortcomings are a reflection of his inadequate character rather than her manipulative tactics. Understanding why people fall victim to these shifting power dynamics is paramount. Often, individuals who enter these relationships do so out of a desire for connection, love, or acceptance. Manipulators exploit these needs, presenting themselves as caring and nurturing figures while masking their ulterior motives. Sam's initial attraction to Tara's charm and strength leads him to overlook the early signs of manipulation. Like many victims, he desires validation and acceptance, which inadvertently makes him susceptible to the power shifts she orchestrates. Awareness of these emotional and psychological impacts is crucial for preventing individuals from becoming ensnared in the intricacies of manipulation. By recognizing how power dynamics can alter emotional health, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem, individuals can develop protective strategies that fortify their sense of self. As we delve deeper into this chapter, we will reveal the hidden warning signs of manipulation that often go unnoticed. Shedding light on these indicators equips individuals with a powerful toolkit to recognize and confront emotional manipulations before they can take root. By increasing awareness of the shifting power dynamics at play, we can pave a clearer path toward emotional empowerment. Understanding these tactics is essential to reclaiming autonomy and ensuring that no one has to endure the debilitating effects of manipulation again. Manipulators possess an uncanny ability to identify their targets, often gravitating toward individuals who exhibit specific vulnerabilities. These targets may be those who display high levels of empathy, a strong desire for acceptance, or recent emotional upheaval. Such individuals can easily be swayed by charm and flattery, which manipulators exploit to establish an initial rapport. For instance, consider the case of Rachel, a compassionate nurse who recently experienced a breakup. When she met Derek, his charismatic nature and genuine interest in her life captivated her. Little did she know that Derek would soon employ manipulative tactics to gain emotional control over her. Once in the relationship, Derek began to gradually undermine Rachel's confidence. His manipulation was subtle, beginning with seemingly harmless comments under the guise of concern. "You work so hard, but sometimes it feels like you need someone to guide you in your decisions," he would say, directing her towards choices that aligned with his preferences. As Rachel began to second-guess her instincts, she lost sight of herself, becoming increasingly reliant on Derek's validation. This scenario illustrates how manipulators target individuals' vulnerabilities, using their emotional needs as leverage in a bid for control. The psychological shifts that occur during such manipulations are subtle, yet profound. In Rachel's case, the alteration begins with her self-perception. Initially confident and secure, she gradually shifts towards self-doubt, as Derek's comments become focal points in her internal narrative. Rachel learns to interpret his praise and criticism as definitive measures of her worth. As a result, her once healthy decision-making processes become clouded by the need to appease Derek, and she no longer acts based on her feelings or interests. Instead, she begins to mold her choices to seek his approval, a classic manifestation of emotional manipulation. Similarly, consider the workplace dynamics experienced by Carlos, who starts a new job under a manager, Fiona, known for her forceful leadership style. From day one, Carlos notices that Fiona excels at identifying individuals she perceives as capable yet insecure. She begins to bestow task assignments that seem to align with his strengths, edging in a degree of praise but undercutting it with periodic criticism. "You did well, but I expected you to go further with this," she says, rendering him anxious about the clarity of his role and responsibilities. As this cycle continues, Carlos finds himself desperately seeking approval, frequently questioning his contributions. This gradual erosion of autonomy reveals how emotions can be manipulated not just in personal relationships, but also in professional environments. Understanding how manipulators identify and exploit their targets is essential for self-defense. Victims often must grapple with the harsh reality that they have been caught unaware while seeking connection or validation. The progression is insidious, as what starts as a seemingly harmless interaction morphs into a compelling emotional trap. Recognizing common vulnerabilities, like a need for approval, the desire to please, or a recent emotional struggle, can serve as critical indicators to guard against manipulation. Awareness of these dynamics equips individuals to detect shifts in power and begin formulating strategies for resistance. Grasping how self-doubt, dependency, and emotional erasure play out in various contexts can help sharpen one's ability to maintain autonomy in challenging situations. In the following section, we will delve deeper into the escalation of control. We'll explore how manipulative tactics intensify over time, ensnaring victims in cycles that are often hard to break. This understanding is pivotal for anyone wishing to disengage from toxic relationships and reclaim their emotional sovereignty. By arming ourselves with this knowledge, we set the stage for transformative resilience against manipulation's grip. Breaking free from the insidious tactics of emotional manipulation requires a definitive counter-strategy that empowers individuals to reclaim their autonomy and clarity. One crucial approach is the practice of active self-reflection, which allows you to tune into your inner voice and recognize the signs of manipulation before they take root. This strategy centers on creating a habit of monitoring your emotions and reactions to different situations and conversations, especially those that involve individuals who may exhibit controlling behaviors. Begin by cultivating a routine of journaling your thoughts and feelings. After each significant interaction, especially with someone who may exhibit manipulative tendencies, take time to reflect on your emotional response. What feelings arose during the conversation? Did you feel anxious, defensive, or conciliatory? Documenting these emotions not only helps you clarify your thoughts, but also builds an internal database of experiences from which you can draw insights. Over time, patterns will emerge, allowing you to see how certain behaviors consistently sway your emotional state. This clarity is vital, as manipulative tactics thrive in the fog of uncertainty. Moreover, practice asserting your boundaries firmly, yet respectfully. Begin with small boundaries in low-stakes situations to build confidence. For instance, if someone interrupts you or belittles your contributions, calmly express your need to finish your thoughts or request more respect. Use I statements to articulate your feelings. I feel overlooked when my ideas are interrupted, rather than accusations that may trigger defensiveness. This practice affirms your agency and reinforces the message that you will not tolerate manipulative behaviors. Trusting your instincts is also paramount. When you feel something is off in a conversation or relationship, pay attention to that intuition. Manipulative individuals often flourish when their victims dismiss or ignore their gut feelings about interactions. Building a habit of listening to those instincts enables you to decipher between genuine interactions and those laced with manipulation. It can be helpful to engage in grounding exercises such as deep breathing or mindfulness meditation to cultivate a calm, centered mindset. This will enhance your capacity to be present and attuned to your emotions during critical moments of potential manipulation. As you implement these strategies, a transformative shift occurs. You begin to reclaim control over your narrative, leading to improved emotional well-being and stronger self-esteem. This empowerment reinforces the notion that you are not merely a passive participant in your relationships, but an active architect of your emotional landscape. By reinforcing personal boundaries and honing self-reflection, you diminish the influence of manipulators and foster healthier, more respectful relationships. As we move toward the next chapter, we will explore the critical concept of escalation in manipulative dynamics. How power plays can deepen over time, often ensnaring victims in cyclical patterns of control. Understanding these cycles is crucial for anyone looking to liberate themselves from emotional entrapment. If you found this chapter helpful, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology for more insights. Your engagement helps us create valuable content for our community. Please like this video and share your thoughts or any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover next in the comments below. Once you understand these tactics, you will possess the tools to navigate your relationships without the fear of being controlled. Embrace your newfound strength and move forward with confidence, knowing that you are equipped to break free from manipulation forever. Chapter 4. Building emotional armor, strengthening your inner resilience. Imagine a situation where Maya, a vibrant young professional, finds herself in a troubling relationship with Tom. Initially, Tom charms Maya with his magnetic personality, seamlessly weaving compliments into their conversations. However, as their connection deepens, the veil of affection begins to lift, revealing a far more unsettling reality. Tom employs emotional manipulation to achieve control over Maya, often making her feel inadequate and uncertain. He sprinkles subtle jabs disguised as advice throughout their interactions, continuously undermining her confidence. You might want to think twice before making that decision. It's really important to consider my perspective, he remarks, gradually steering her away from her own instincts. Tom's ultimate goal is to dominate the emotional landscape of Maya's life, trapping her in a cycle of dependency where she relies solely on his validation. The emotional pain inflicted by such manipulation takes a toll, ultimately leading Maya to doubt her judgment, happiness, and most crucially, her worth. This scenario exemplifies how victims often fail to recognize the full extent of their entrapment until it is too late, as emotional control stealthily clouds their perception of reality. Initially, Maya feels flattered by Tom's attention, unaware that this dynamic will soon evolve into an emotional quagmire. Her friends begin to notice subtle shifts in her demeanor. She laughs less frequently and seems more anxious about her decisions. Yet, entangled in the web of emotional manipulation, she remains largely oblivious to the fact that her self-esteem is eroding. She struggles to comprehend how Tom's words have sown seeds of doubt that flourish in her psyche. The inability of victims like Maya to recognize their entrapment is often compounded by the way manipulators craft their narratives to elicit sympathy and justify their behavior. Tom might portray himself as merely concerned or protective, further masking the control he exerts over Maya with a facade of care. His tactics are insidious, as it is easy for Maya to rationalize Tom's comments as helpful guidance rather than manipulation. This blurred line between care and control makes it increasingly challenging for victims to disentangle themselves from emotional abuse. Research highlights that emotional manipulation can lead to psychological distress, including anxiety and depression, exacerbating the victim's sense of isolation and helplessness. As their emotional armor wears thin, victims become more susceptible to compliance with the manipulator's demands. Maya, caught in this cycle, begins to prioritize Tom's wishes over her own, relinquishing control of her life while gradually withdrawing from her support systems. Understanding the nature of emotional manipulation and its impact is critical for building resilience. Maya's journey illustrates the vital need for individuals to cultivate emotional armor that enables them to confront manipulative behavior head-on. This armor is built not merely through resistance, but through a transformative process of recognizing internal worth and asserting boundaries. As we proceed in this chapter, we will explore practical strategies to fortify your emotional resilience, empowering you to navigate manipulative dynamics with confidence. The aim is to prevent manipulative tactics from penetrating your defenses, ensuring you remain rooted in your identity and self-worth. By understanding the mechanisms of emotional manipulation, you can equip yourself to reclaim your autonomy and build an unwavering sense of self, free from the chains of emotional control. The effects of emotional manipulation reverberate deeply, impacting victims' emotions, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. When someone like Maya becomes ensnared in a manipulative relationship, the immediate emotional fallout is overwhelming. The fluctuations between emotional highs from affection and emotional lows from criticism create a state of perpetual confusion. This instability engenders a toxic emotional environment, leaving victims feeling drained and vulnerable. Psychological research indicates that this emotional turmoil can lead to increased levels of anxiety and depression as the victim grapples with continually questioning their self-worth and reality. In decision-making, emotional manipulation can cloud judgment significantly. When constantly second-guessing themselves, victims may delay decisions or overly rely on their manipulator's opinions. Maya, for instance, may hesitate to accept a promotion at work due to Tom's negative reinforcement. You wouldn't be able to balance that with your other responsibilities, would you? Such statements instill doubt, leading her to prioritize his validation over her own aspirations. The internalization of this manipulation results in a stunted ability to trust oneself, making the victim susceptible to further emotional control. The ramifications of emotional manipulation extend beyond personal turmoil. They similarly strain existing relationships. Victims often retreat from friends and family, fearing judgment or misunderstanding, which only exacerbates their isolation. Maya may find herself avoiding social gatherings, preferring the comfort of Tom's presence over the perceived threat of external critique. As her isolation grows, she inadvertently reinforces the manipulative cycle, becoming increasingly dependent on her attacker for emotional validation and companionship. Self-esteem suffers tremendously under the weight of manipulation. Individuals like Maya often internalize derogatory comments and criticisms from their manipulators, leading to an erosion of self-worth. Research by the American Psychological Association reveals that people exposed to chronic emotional manipulation exhibit heightened feelings of inadequacy, resulting in a cycle where low self-esteem perpetuates vulnerability. Maya's once clear vision of her capabilities becomes obscured by Tom's negative commentary, gradually leading her to question her value and abilities across multiple domains. People fall for these manipulative tactics for various reasons, often tied to their emotional needs and backgrounds. Individuals with a high sensitivity to approval or a history of trauma may find themselves particularly vulnerable to manipulation. Many manipulators are proficient at identifying these traits, targeting individuals who exhibit qualities like empathy and a strong desire for connection. For Maya, Tom's initial warmth drew her in, making it difficult for her to recognize the darker undercurrents until it became too late. Understanding the profound effects of emotional manipulation is crucial for developing emotional armor and reclaiming agency. Recognizing how these tactics undermine emotions, hinder decision-making, damage relationships, and erode self-esteem is vital for establishing resilience. The urgency of this knowledge cannot be overstated. It is essential for breaking free from the clutches of manipulation and rejecting the narrative imposed by someone seeking control. As we delve further into this chapter, we will highlight the hidden warning signs of emotional manipulation that often go unnoticed in relationships. By identifying these red flags, readers can safeguard their emotional well-being and learn to recognize when their autonomy is being threatened. Making these insights accessible will empower individuals to reclaim their emotional strength and navigate relationships with confidence and clarity. Manipulators possess a remarkable ability to identify their targets, often honing in on individuals who exhibit specific psychological vulnerabilities. They are skilled at recognizing traits that signal susceptibility, such as a desire for approval, high empathy levels, recent emotional trauma, or a history of conflicted relationships. These manipulators typically thrive in social settings, keenly observing how potential victims interact with others and react to emotional stimuli. For instance, consider the case of Lisa, who, after leaving a difficult relationship, is seeking comfort and connection. An individual like Mark notices her vulnerability almost immediately and approaches her with apparent warmth and understanding, positioning himself as a savior in her time of emotional need. Once Mark ingratiates himself into Lisa's life, he begins employing tactics of emotional manipulation designed to draw her further into his orbit. His approach is subtle but deliberate. He uses compliments interspersed with critical remarks to keep her off balance. "You are so talented, but I think your last project could have used my touch," he retorts, suggesting that her success hinges on his involvement. Through these comments, Mark not only gains psychological influence over Lisa's self-esteem, but also positions himself as essential to her creative worth. This dynamic creates a dependency, where Lisa feels compelled to seek his feedback and validation, often at the expense of her own judgments. The psychological shifts that occur during this manipulation are often insidious. Initially, Lisa might feel flattered by Mark's attention, interpreting his feedback as genuine concern, rather than a strategy to exert control. However, as his comments begin to chip away at her confidence, Lisa starts experiencing feelings of self-doubt and anxiety. She may constantly question her abilities, leading to a gradual erosion of her self-esteem. As she struggles to navigate her emotions, she becomes more reliant on Mark for affirmation, further entrenching him in a position of authority over her self-worth. Similarly, in a workplace setting, consider the scenario of Tom, who is consistently undermined by his boss, Linda. Linda is opportunistic, identifying Tom's perfectionism and dedication to his work, and uses these traits to her advantage. When Tom presents a project, instead of offering constructive feedback, Linda makes derogatory remarks such as, This is okay, but I expected so much more from you. Through this tactic, she fosters an environment of fear and insecurity, dissuading Tom from voicing his opinions or taking risks. As a result, he begins to seek her approval obsessively, acting more as a compliant employee than an engaged contributor. Recognizing the patterns of manipulation is crucial to dismantling these power plays. Victims often find themselves feeling isolated and confused, failing to see the subtle chains that bind them. The truths hidden behind a mask of affection or authority become increasingly difficult to discern, leaving individuals feeling trapped and powerless. By raising awareness of these tactics, readers can develop a sharper lens through which to examine their own relationships, allowing them to spot early warning signs of manipulation and take proactive measures. Understanding these manipulation techniques is the first step toward resistance. Armed with knowledge, individuals can begin to reclaim their power, unearthing their capacity for self-validation and developing more equitable and healthy relationships. As we continue into the next section, we will explore the escalation of control in manipulative dynamics and how victims can become ensnared in troubling cycles, providing essential insights for breaking free from these detrimental patterns. This awareness is a vital component in fostering resilience and ensuring emotional autonomy in interpersonal relationships. Breaking free from the dark psychological tactics of manipulation requires a proactive and comprehensive strategy that empowers individuals to reclaim their emotional agency and reinforce their inner resilience. One powerful counter-strategy lies in the practice of clarity through self-affirmation. This involves creating a structured framework to assess personal values, beliefs, and boundaries, which serves as an emotional compass in challenging situations. Begin by dedicating time to introspection. Reflect on your core values and what makes you feel secure and valued. Write down affirmations affirming your worth and ability to make sound decisions. These statements can be as simple as, "I am capable," or "My feelings are valid," and serve as constant reminders of your intrinsic value, especially when faced with external doubt. By regularly reaffirming these truths, you strengthen your emotional foundation, making it more difficult for manipulators to instill uncertainty or self-doubt. Each time you recite these affirmations, you reinforce a powerful narrative that counters the manipulation tactics directed at you. Equally important is to cultivate the habit of checking in with yourself emotionally in real time. After each significant interaction, reflect on your feelings. Do you feel uplifted and respected, or diminished and confused? By consistently evaluating your emotional responses, you create a heightened awareness of how you are influenced in different relational dynamics. This practice sharpens your instincts, enabling you to recognize manipulative patterns more quickly. Trusting your instincts is central to this liberation process. Manipulative tactics thrive in uncertainty, often causing victims to doubt their perceptions and feelings. When your gut tells you something feels off, pay attention to that sensation. It is your internal warning system. For example, if you begin to feel uneasy after a conversation with someone, take a step back to assess why that discomfort arose. Did they dismiss your ideas? Did they push you toward choices that conflict with your values? Understanding these emotional nudges is crucial to regaining control over your narrative. Additionally, establishing and communicating firm boundaries is a fundamental component of this counter-strategy. Clearly articulate what is acceptable behavior and what is not, and practice asserting your needs without hesitation. For instance, if someone makes a condescending comment, address it directly. "I find that comment disrespectful, and I would prefer a more supportive approach." By taking ownership of your boundaries, you prevent further encroachment by manipulators and signal that their tactics will not go unchallenged. As you implement these strategies, you will develop greater emotional resilience and confidence, enabling you to disengage from toxic dynamics. This journey toward empowerment is vital. Understanding these tactics equips you with the tools to navigate relationships without fear of manipulation. As we transition to the next chapter, we will delve into the crucial topic of power dynamics and the escalation of control in manipulative relationships. We will explore how these tactics can intensify and lead victims into deeper entrapments, providing invaluable insights on how to recognize and escape such cycles. If you found this chapter valuable, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology for more empowering content. Your engagement is critical in building a supportive community focused on personal growth and resilience. Please like this video and share your thoughts or suggestions for future topics in the comments below. Once you understand these tactics and implement these strategies, you will emerge stronger and equipped to resist manipulation. You have the power to shape your narrative, ensuring that you will never succumb to the same tactics again. Embrace your journey towards self-empowerment and liberation. Your freedom from emotional control starts now. Chapter 5: Smart Comebacks. Responding with confidence and strategy. Imagine Sarah, a bright and ambitious marketing executive who finds herself in a tense and manipulative relationship with her colleague, Greg. During meetings, Greg frequently undermines her ideas, making condescending remarks that diminish her contributions. "That's a great idea, Sarah, but have you considered how impractical it is?" he quips, smirking slightly. As the meetings progress, Greg's dismissiveness becomes increasingly palpable, and Sarah begins to retreat into silence, feeling her confidence wane with each jab. What started as an innocent comment soon morphs into a series of calculated attacks designed to keep Sarah dependent on Greg's approval. Greg's ultimate goal is to elevate himself at Sarah's expense, gaining recognition while simultaneously exerting control over her input in team discussions. By continuously undermining her contributions, he aims to create an atmosphere of compliance, where Sarah feels compelled to defer to his opinions rather than asserting her own. This dynamic leaves Sarah feeling trapped and unsure, questioning her abilities and the value of her voice in professional settings. Unfortunately, victims like Sarah often fail to recognize the full extent of their entrapment until it's too late. The gradual erosion of self-esteem makes it increasingly difficult to respond effectively to manipulative commentary. As Sarah struggles with self-doubt, she might engage in a dangerous pattern of overthinking, ruminating on Greg's words long after meetings have ended. This internal conflict often leads to paralysis in decision-making. Instead of confidently contributing ideas, she finds herself second-guessing her knowledge and hesitating to speak up. The emotional toll this takes can manifest in physical symptoms such as anxiety or stress, further undermining her performance and sense of identity in the workplace. Manipulation can often disguise itself as constructive criticism or playful banter, making it challenging for the victim to identify the negative intent behind the comments. The real danger lies in how these tactics can weaponize language, leading intelligent, capable individuals to doubt their own insights. People like Sarah often internalize these comments, allowing the manipulator's narrative to take precedence over their own truth. When Sarah hears, "You need to improve your presentation skills," from Greg, she may believe she is inadequate, disregarding her years of successful presentations and her positive feedback from other colleagues. Recognizing these patterns of manipulation is critical for developing smart comebacks that assert one's confidence and dismantle the negative narrative being perpetuated. Effective comebacks do not merely aim to silence the aggressor, but empower the victim by reinforcing their validity and worth. For instance, a potential comeback for Sarah could be, "I appreciate your perspective, but my approach has garnered positive results in the past. Let's examine that together." This formulation not only redirects the conversation, but also asserts her professionalism and establishes her accountability to facts, rather than subjective opinions. The need for confident responses is essential for anyone navigating environments riddled with manipulation. Building the skills to counter dismissive remarks with clarity and assertiveness is crucial in reclaiming one's power. Learning to articulate thoughts effectively and maintaining composure during tension-filled exchanges equips victims to stand their ground against emotional undermining. As we delve further into this chapter, we will explore different strategies for crafting responses that not only dismantle manipulation, but also build confidence, enabling individuals like Sarah to reclaim their voice in any situation. By uncovering these tactics, readers will empower themselves to respond effectively and strategically, ensuring their contributions remain valued and respected. In doing so, they are better positioned to transform manipulative interactions into opportunities for growth and self-assertion. The emotional impact of manipulation is profound and far-reaching, influencing not only the victim's emotional state, but also their decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. Sarah, faced with Greg's consistent undermining, finds herself in a cycle of anxiety and self-doubt, leading to significant emotional distress. This emotional turmoil manifests as an acute awareness of every interaction, causing her to obsessively analyze Greg's comments long after meetings have concluded. Instead of approaching her work with confidence, she becomes consumed by the fear of making mistakes or facing further criticism. Studies in psychological research indicate that individuals exposed to ongoing manipulation often experience elevated stress levels, leading to anxiety and depression. As emotional instability sets in, victims like Sarah may struggle to make sound decisions, often deferring to the manipulator's judgment rather than trusting their instincts. In Sarah's case, her hesitation to put forth her ideas stems from an ingrained fear of being belittled, which further inhibits her cognitive abilities and creativity. The longer this dynamic continues, the more ingrained the manipulation becomes, crafting a lens through which every decision is filtered by doubt and insecurity. The effects extend into personal relationships as well. Sarah's growing dependence on Greg for affirmation interrupts not only her professional life, but her interactions with friends and family. Robbed of her confidence, she may withdraw from social gatherings, concerned that she won't measure up or be able to contribute meaningfully. This isolation compounds her emotional struggles. Sarah is left feeling unsupported and distanced from people who could provide a more accurate picture of her capabilities. Psychological research reflects that social isolation can exacerbate feelings of worthlessness, creating a cycle where victims of manipulation further entrench themselves in unconstructive relational patterns. Understanding why individuals fall prey to these tactics is crucial. Many victims possess traits of high empathy or a strong desire to please others, making them vulnerable to emotional manipulation. The initial charm and flattery often disarm victims, leading them to overlook the more insidious behaviors emerging beneath the surface. Sarah, drawn to Greg's initially supportive demeanor, is caught off guard when he shifts to subtle criticisms. Her desire for acceptance and collaboration blinds her to the red flags that signal manipulation. Case studies illustrate this vulnerability across various contexts, from personal relationships to workplace environments. For instance, consider a scenario involving Julia, a talented software developer who faces similar injustices at work. Her colleague frequently undermines her contributions in team meetings by saying, "Anyone could have thought of that solution," diminishing her confidence. Over time, Julia feels less inclined to share her innovative ideas, believing they lack value. This gradual submission not only hampers her professional growth, but feeds into a cycle of self-doubt that impacts her social interactions and personal life as well. The urgency to grasp these manipulation tactics cannot be overstated. Recognizing their destructive impact on emotions, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem equips individuals with the tools to counteract such dynamics effectively. By fostering a sense of awareness regarding these manipulative behaviors, victims can reclaim their voice, asserting their contributions with confidence. As we transition toward the next section of this chapter, we will focus on unveiling the hidden warning signs of manipulation that often go unnoticed. By identifying these red flags early, individuals can protect themselves from the emotional spiral of manipulative relationships, arming them with the knowledge needed to navigate complex interpersonal situations safely. Understanding these tactics is the first step toward personal empowerment and resilience in the face of emotional subjugation. Manipulators possess a keen ability to identify their targets, honing in on individuals whose vulnerabilities are often readily apparent. They typically look for people who embody traits such as an eagerness to please, high levels of empathy, or those who have recently faced emotional upheaval or loss. For instance, consider Emma, a new employee at a tech startup who is keen to make a positive impression. Recognizing her enthusiasm and need for acceptance, her colleague Alex quickly establishes rapport with her. Initially, he appears supportive, but it soon becomes clear that his attentiveness serves a more insidious purpose. As the weeks unfold, Alex begins employing manipulation tactics to assert his dominance. He subtly undermines Emma's contributions during team meetings, making comments like, "I'm sure we can all agree this is a team effort, right?" This seemingly innocuous remark serves to downplay Emma's ideas while reinforcing Alex's position as the group leader. What Emma does not immediately perceive is that Alex's intent is to foster dependency, creating doubt in her mind about her own contributions. The psychological shifts that occur during manipulation are often gradual and therefore challenging to recognize. Initially, Emma may feel flattered by Alex's attention and engage willingly in collaborative projects. However, as the encounters progress, she finds herself increasingly hesitant to voice her opinions. Every critical remark from Alex sows a seed of vulnerability, leading her to internalize the belief that her ideas lack merit. This gradual erosion of self-trust can be stark. Over time, Emma's self-speak reflects Alex's dismissive words, convincing her that she is not worthy of being heard. Case studies reveal that this pattern of manipulation is not isolated. Consider Jake, who experiences subtle emotional manipulation in his friendship with Mark. At first, Mark's confidence seems appealing, but it quickly evolves into a tactic where he leads conversations to consistently reference Jake's shortcomings. "I'm just trying to help you improve," Mark says, while in reality, his comments serve to bolster his own image at Jake's expense. This slowly erodes Jake's self-esteem, leading him to withdraw from social gatherings where he once thrived. The cyclical nature of this relationship illustrates how manipulators like Mark capitalize on their target's insecurities to maintain power. Understanding how manipulators identify their targets and execute these tactics is essential for self-defense. The ability to recognize behavioral shifts in oneself can significantly alter the power dynamics within a relationship. Such clarity allows individuals to identify when conversations begin to spiral toward a familiar pattern of emotional undermining, empowering them to respond appropriately rather than acquiesce to feelings of inadequacy. The urgency of this knowledge is paramount, as it provides a blueprint for resisting manipulation effectively. By embracing awareness of these manipulative tactics, individuals pave the way for resistance and reclaim their agency. Engaging in reflective practices that connect emotions with behavioral triggers strengthens this capacity. In the next part of this chapter, we will delve into the escalation of control in manipulative relationships, exploring how these dynamics deepen over time and entrap victims within destructive cycles. By identifying the signs of escalation, individuals can arm themselves with strategies that not only protect but empower them. Understanding these patterns is a vital first step toward ensuring emotional liberation and fostering healthier, more resilient relationships where everyone is valued and respected. Breaking free from the damaging psychological tactics of manipulation requires a comprehensive and practical counter-strategy that empowers the individual. One effective approach is to establish a firm practice of self-advocacy, which involves articulating your thoughts, feelings, and boundaries clearly and assertively. This counter-strategy enables you to regain a sense of control over your interactions and effectively dismantle the manipulative tactics employed by others. Start by recognizing the importance of your voice and opinions. When faced with dismissive remarks or undermining comments, respond assertively rather than passively absorbing the negativity. For example, if someone like Greg makes a condescending remark about your contributions as Sarah experienced, instead of internalizing that criticism, respond confidently. "I appreciate your input, but I believe my ideas have merit and can contribute positively to the team." Such a response not only reaffirms your value, but also sets a boundary, signaling that you will not tolerate disrespect. Additionally, trust your instincts. Your intuition can serve as a powerful guide in recognizing when conversations shift into manipulation territory. When you sense discomfort or unease in a discussion, do not ignore those feelings. Instead, take a moment to assess the situation and determine whether it aligns with your values and expectations. Trusting your instincts allows you to navigate interpersonal interactions more effectively, helping you identify potential manipulation before it spirals out of control. Establishing clarity in your thoughts and feelings is vital for liberation. Practicing mindfulness techniques, such as journaling or meditation, can promote self-awareness and understanding. Spend a few moments each day reflecting on your emotional state and the interactions you encountered. By engaging in this practice, you gain insights into how manipulation affects your well-being and enhance your ability to respond with confidence in future situations. Surround yourself with supportive individuals who uplift and validate your feelings. Building a strong network of friends, family, or colleagues creates a buffer against manipulation. Having people who recognize your worth reinforces the narrative that you are deserving of respect. When you receive encouragement from others, it becomes increasingly easier to dismantle the damaging influence of manipulators. Having an external support system also allows for valuable perspectives on your experiences, empowering you to draw comparisons to others in similar situations. As you employ these strategies, a remarkable transformation will occur. You will begin to recognize your inherent worth, paving the way toward resilience in facing manipulation. Engaging in self-advocacy not only builds confidence but also cultivates a relationship with your sense of self that is rooted in empowerment rather than compliance. As we move into the next chapter, we will explore the escalation of control often encountered in manipulative dynamics. We will look at how seemingly innocuous actions can lead to a broader pattern of emotional domination, making it essential for you to remain vigilant and proactive. Recognizing these escalating patterns is crucial for developing preemptive strategies that prevent emotional entrapment. If you found this chapter empowering, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology for ongoing support and insights in navigating complex emotional landscapes. Your engagement helps cultivate a community dedicated to personal growth and resilience. Share your thoughts and suggestions for future topics in the comments below, as each voice contributes to our collective journey. Once you grasp these tactics and utilize the strategies discussed, you will fortify yourself against manipulation in all forms. You will emerge more robust and steadfast, forever equipped to navigate relationships without fear of being controlled. Embrace this empowering journey and stand firm in your truth. Your liberation begins now. Chapter 6. Setting Firm Boundaries, Ending the Manipulative Cycle. Consider the story of Alex, a compassionate teacher who has devoted himself to nurturing his students and creating a positive learning environment. However, his dedication attracts a colleague, Rachel, who appears to admire his work ethic at first. As weeks go by, it becomes clear that Rachel's intentions are not as altruistic as they seem. She begins to request constant favors, maneuvering herself into Alex's personal and professional life. "Can you cover my class today? I simply can't handle it," she implores, framing her requests as desperate appeals for help. Typically kind-hearted, Alex reluctantly obliges, but Rachel's increasing demands soon become overwhelming. Rachel's ultimate goal is to exploit Alex's goodwill, manipulating him into compliance under the guise of friendship. By blurring the lines between personal and professional boundaries, she creates a dynamic where Alex feels guilty for denying her requests. This stealthy approach leads him to believe that he must remain accommodating and available, yet it simultaneously erodes his sense of agency and self-worth. Victims like Alex often fail to grasp the dangerous nature of these entrapments until far too late, as Rachel's manipulative behavior gradually becomes the norm to which he and others adjust without question. Unbeknownst to Alex, every time he succumbs to Rachel's demands, he strengthens her hold over him. The emotional toll begins to manifest in subtle yet significant ways. He starts to experience heightened stress levels and feelings of inadequacy, believing that his only value lies in his ability to satisfy Rachel's requests. By entrenching herself in Alex's life, Rachel isolates him from friends who would typically provide support and perspective, leaving him vulnerable to further manipulation. The insidious nature of this manipulation is exacerbated by its subtlety. Manipulators like Rachel often position themselves as victims, painting a narrative that demands assistance without openly acknowledging the impact of their actions on others. This strategy effectively cultivates a cycle of guilt for victims who may struggle to say no. For Alex, the reality is stark. He is not just accommodating a colleague, but entering a transaction where he loses bits of himself to preserve Rachel's comfort and approval. The emotional costs of such manipulation often go unrecognized in the moment, as victims seldom see the extent of their entrapment until they are engulfed in the chaos of the relationships they nurture. Moreover, the psychological shifts incurred by this manipulation can be profound. Over time, Alex may find himself questioning not just his professional worth, but his character as a whole. Am I a bad person for not helping? This troubling inner dialogue strips him of his confidence, causing him to feel that his boundaries are negotiable and that his needs are secondary to Rachel's relentless demands. Recognizing the gravity of these situations is crucial. Setting firm boundaries becomes an act of self-preservation in the face of manipulative tactics. By defining what is acceptable behavior, victims empower themselves to protect their emotional well-being and reclaim their narratives. Discussions of boundaries may initially feel uncomfortable, but by addressing this discomfort, individuals can generate a healthier dynamic in their relationships. As we continue to explore the necessity of boundary setting in the subsequent sections, we will delve into practical strategies to instill these boundaries in various situations. Understanding and implementing effective boundary-setting techniques will be key in liberating oneself from the cycle of manipulation that seeks to undermine one's identity and integrity. Armed with this knowledge, readers can begin to strengthen their defenses against emotional control, paving the way for healthier connections that foster mutual respect and understanding. The effects of failing to set firm boundaries are profound, influencing victims' emotions, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. When individuals like Alex continually acquiesce to the demands of manipulative figures like Rachel, they unknowingly contribute to a downward spiral of emotional and psychological strain. Initially, Alex might feel honored or flattered that someone seeks him out for assistance. However, this feeling quickly gives way to resentment and overwhelm. The emotional toll begins to mount as his stress levels rise, leading to anxiety and irritability. Research from the American Psychological Association indicates that individuals who lack strong emotional boundaries are more susceptible to stress-related disorders, as they struggle to manage their own needs while constantly tending to others. In terms of decision-making, the lack of boundaries creates a state of indecision and confusion. When confronted with Rachel's persistent requests, Alex might hesitate and feel unable to say no, even when he knows he is overextending himself. This constant compromise fosters a pattern where he gradually becomes less confident in his ability to assess situations accurately. The chickened-out decision-making leads to a reliance on Rachel's judgment, causing him to defer to her preferences instead of prioritizing his own needs. Studies indicate that scenarios fraught with emotional manipulation can seriously hinder cognitive function, leading individuals to feel more confused and less decisive over time. The ripple effect extends into Alex's relationships outside of his work environment, as his emotional exhaustion impacts his connections with friends and family. Withdrawal becomes a common response as he tries to cope with the stress of his manipulatively demanding colleague. When pushed to his limits, Alex may find himself canceling plans or rescheduling events with loved ones to accommodate Rachel's needs. This may leave those around him feeling neglected and unimportant, which can lead to further isolation. Research shows that social isolation can exacerbate feelings of depression and anxiety, creating a feedback loop that traps victims in a cycle of emotional suffering. As their self-esteem is undermined by the continuous disregard for personal boundaries, victims often internalize the belief that they are not worthy of respect or support. Alex might internalize Rachel's demands, leading him to feel that each time he denies a request, he risks losing her approval or friendship. These experiences chip away at his self-concept, leaving him feeling powerless and inadequate. Psychological studies highlight how such manipulation can lead victims to question their capabilities, contributing to persistent feelings of low self-worth and self-doubt. Individuals fall for manipulative tactics primarily because of their inherent desire for connection, acceptance, and validation. Alex, in seeking to be the supportive colleague, overlooks the early signs of Rachel's exploitative behavior. Many victims have deeply ingrained beliefs that equate self-sacrifice with virtue, making it difficult to assert their needs without feeling guilty. They may also struggle with fear of confrontation or rejection, further compounding their vulnerability to manipulation. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for anyone eager to break free from the harmful cycles of emotional manipulation. Becoming aware of the emotional and psychological impacts of failing to set boundaries empowers individuals to reclaim their identity and foster healthier relationships. As we move into the next section of this chapter, we will delve into the hidden warning signs of manipulation that often go unnoticed. By learning to recognize these signs early on, readers can protect themselves from the emotional damage that arises from entangled relationships, equipping themselves with the knowledge necessary to navigate their social environments with confidence and awareness. Understanding these warning signs is a vital step toward building a more empowered and assertive self, capable of maintaining boundaries that foster resilience in relationships. Manipulators often possess an acute awareness of their surroundings and can identify their targets with precision. They gravitate toward individuals who exhibit certain vulnerabilities, characteristics such as high empathy, a strong desire for validation, or recent emotional struggles. Such individuals are typically more open to influence and less likely to assert themselves. For instance, consider Emma, a recently divorced woman who is navigating her way through a difficult emotional landscape. An acquaintance, Claire, senses Emma's vulnerability and sees an opportunity to manipulate her. Initially presenting herself as a sympathetic listener, Claire quickly shapes herself into a figure of support, but her ulterior motive lies in establishing dominance in their friendship. As the manipulation unfolds, Claire begins to exert subtle control over various aspects of Emma's life. She offers advice laced with veiled criticism. "Are you sure you want to go back to work so soon? Maybe you should focus on your personal life first." While Claire positions her remarks as care, the comments serve to undermine Emma's confidence and independence. This dynamic illustrates how manipulators target those who are emotionally weakened, crafting narratives that assume control and impede the victim's ability to make autonomous choices. The psychological shifts that occur during such manipulative relationships are often gradual, making them difficult for victims to recognize. In Emma's case, the initial feeling of camaraderie and support she experiences with Claire soon turns into a sense of obligation. Over time, Emma begins to feel that she must constantly seek Claire's approval, fearing the consequences of asserting her own needs. This shift is not uncommon. Victims frequently find themselves trapped in a cycle of compliance, where their self-esteem is contingent on pleasing the manipulator. Research highlights that emotional manipulation can lead to significant turmoil in an individual's psyche. When Claire begins to dictate aspects of Emma's life, suggesting she avoid certain social situations or friends, she creates an environment ripe for isolation. Emma may feel confused, thinking that distancing herself from her previous support systems is in her best interest, thus fulfilling Claire's desire for control. This transformation breeds a layered sense of dependence, stripping Emma of her agency as Claire's influence grows unchallenged. In workplace settings, the same principles apply. Take the case of Tom, who works closely with a senior manager, Rebecca. She utilizes manipulative tactics to reinforce her authority. During team meetings, she may frequently dismiss Tom's suggestions with statements like, "I'm not sure that aligns with our objectives." Initially, Tom might take her feedback at face value, but over time, he begins to second-guess his ideas and contributions, ultimately leading to reduced participation. The subtle manner in which Rebecca communicates her critiques exemplifies how interpersonal dynamics can be skewed through manipulation, resulting in a compromised ability to express oneself confidently. Recognizing the signs of emotional manipulation is crucial for self-defense. Awareness of who is being targeted and how these tactics manifest in everyday interactions empowers individuals to take action before they become ensnared. Understanding that manipulators often employ charm initially can help victims identify when that charm shifts into control. Knowledge of these tactics serves as the first line of resistance against manipulation. Whether in personal or professional settings, being attuned to the dynamics of manipulation allows individuals to reclaim their autonomy and assertiveness. With this foundational understanding, readers will be better equipped to navigate complex relational dynamics. As we advance to the next part of this chapter, we will explore how manipulation can escalate into deeper control, ensnaring victims in oppressive cycles that are difficult to break. By understanding these escalation patterns, individuals can become more vigilant in their efforts to maintain healthy and balanced relationships that honor their boundaries. Recognition and understanding are essential tools for navigating emotional landscapes rife with manipulation, enabling people to protect their well-being effectively. To break free from the dark psychological tactics employed by manipulators, one of the most effective strategies is to establish and maintain firm boundaries. This process begins with self-reflection to clarify what you value and how you wish to be treated within your relationships. Take time to identify scenarios that trigger feelings of discomfort or vulnerability. Reflecting on these experiences will help you understand what constitutes a breach of your boundaries and allow you to articulate these standards clearly. Once you have a well-defined sense of your boundaries, practice asserting them calmly and confidently. For instance, if someone presses you for favors that you're uncomfortable granting, respond with clear statements about your limitations. You might say, "I appreciate that you're asking for help, but I can't take on any more responsibilities right now." This assertion not only conveys your limits, but also reinforces your self-worth. Establishing boundaries helps create a buffer against manipulation, asserting that your needs and feelings are valid and must be respected. Trusting your instincts is equally vital in this process. Manipulators thrive in environments filled with uncertainty, using emotional confusion to undermine confidence and assert dominance. Learning to recognize the feelings that arise during uncomfortable interactions can serve as an early warning system. If something feels off, honor that feeling. Take a step back and assess the situation without pressure to respond immediately. Trusting your intuition allows you to reclaim control over your emotional landscape, making it easier to navigate challenging conversations. Moreover, it can be beneficial to engage in assertiveness training or similar workshops where such skills are practiced in a supportive environment. Role-playing scenarios can help prepare you for real-life encounters, allowing you to rehearse how you might respond to manipulative tactics and reinforce your commitment to maintaining healthy boundaries. Studies show that assertiveness training significantly boosts self-esteem and reduces feelings of helplessness, enabling individuals to combat manipulation with confidence. As you apply these strategies, you will begin to notice a shift in your interactions. With your boundaries established and trust in your instincts reinforced, you create a stronger defense against emotional subjugation. Empowered by your newfound clarity, you may find that previously intimidating situations become more manageable. This change fosters a sense of liberation, allowing you to engage with others from a position of strength rather than fear. As we prepare to transition to the next chapter, we will delve deeper into how manipulation often escalates within relationships, leading victims to experience cycles of control that are increasingly difficult to break. By understanding the stages of this escalation, you will be better equipped to recognize when boundaries are being crossed and how to respond effectively. If you found this chapter enlightening, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology for further exploration of emotional health and resilience. Your participation in this community is invaluable. Like this video and share your experiences or suggestions for upcoming topics in the comments. Armed with the tools to recognize and enforce your boundaries, you will no longer be at the mercy of others' manipulative tactics. You have the power to redefine your relationships, ensuring they honor your needs and values. Understanding and implementing these strategies mark a pivotal step toward reclaiming control over your emotional well-being and fostering a life where you thrive, unshackled from the influence of manipulation. Chapter 7. Reclaiming Peace. Thriving Beyond Toxic Games. Picture a scenario where Lisa, a once enthusiastic project manager, finds herself ensnared in a toxic work environment dominated by her supervisor, Carl. Initially, Carl appears charismatic and supportive, showering Lisa with compliments while promoting a collaborative atmosphere. Yet it soon becomes clear that his charm conceals ulterior motives designed to manipulate and control. Lisa begins to notice that Carl frequently takes credit for her work during team meetings, all while subtly undermining her confidence with passive-aggressive comments. "You're lucky I'm here to help steer the team," he remarks, emphasizing his influence over her contributions. Carl's ultimate goal is the consolidation of power. By diminishing Lisa's sense of self and contributions, he positions himself as an essential figure in her professional narrative. The toxicity of this environment soon affects every aspect of Lisa's life: her emotional health, self-esteem, and decision-making capabilities. Although Carl's tactics seem benign at first, the unrelenting pressure mounts until Lisa feels trapped, unable to speak up or assert her worth. In her mind, Carl's authority is absolute, and she is left questioning her capabilities, spiraling into a cycle of self-doubt that seems impossible to escape. Victims like Lisa often fail to recognize the damaging effects of emotional manipulation until they reach a breaking point. The gradual erosion of self-esteem makes it increasingly difficult for them to realize that their feelings of inadequacy stem from the manipulative dynamics rather than a true reflection of their abilities. In Lisa's case, she becomes isolated from her colleagues as she withdraws, fearing judgment and doubting her contributions. This social isolation only amplifies her anxiety, creating an environment where she feels increasingly alone and powerless. The psychological repercussions of this toxic manipulation extend far beyond the workplace. As her emotional state deteriorates, Lisa may find herself withdrawing from friends and family, retreating into a shell where she feels safe from further rejection. Research shows that chronic emotional manipulation can result in long-term mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Lisa's situation is not unique. Many individuals experiencing similar dynamics become completely disconnected from their authentic selves and struggle to reclaim personal peace. Ignoring the red flags of manipulation allows toxic relationships to flourish, trapping individuals in a cycle that becomes difficult to break. Once the hold of manipulation tightens, recognizing the toxic dynamics presents an enormous challenge. Think of Mark, a devoted partner who becomes emotionally ensnared in a relationship characterized by manipulation, suffering quietly as he tries to meet the unreasonable demands of his spouse. The patterns of control perpetuated in such circumstantial frameworks blur the lines of healthy relationships and normal interpersonal dynamics. Reclaiming peace amidst such toxicity begins with understanding the environment that fosters these dynamics. Acknowledging the manipulation, articulating the reality of the situation, and taking proactive steps to distance oneself from the toxic influences is essential. Awareness of the manipulative tactics at play clarifies the path forward, empowering individuals to assert their boundaries firmly and identify healthier relationships. As we delve further into this chapter, we will explore practical strategies to cultivate a peaceful and fulfilling life beyond the reach of manipulation. Recognizing that personal peace is attainable in both personal and professional realms is pivotal for those looking to thrive, not merely survive in their environments. By arming yourself with knowledge and tools to reclaim your sense of self, you can face the manipulation head-on and emerge victorious with newfound clarity and strength. The effects of toxic manipulation are profound, impacting victims' emotions, decision-making, relationships, and overall self-esteem in ways that can be deeply damaging. When individuals like Lisa remain entwined in manipulative situations, the emotional repercussions can be overwhelming. For example, Lisa experiences a continuous state of anxiety, struggling to know if her contributions will ever be appreciated. This emotional roller coaster not only affects her mood, but also creates an environment where she feels perpetually on edge, unsure of how her words and actions may be received. Research from psychological studies indicates that prolonged exposure to emotional manipulation can lead to significant stress and anxiety. Victims often find themselves grappling with an internal conflict where their instincts scream for self-advocacy, yet their experiences of being undermined leave them paralyzed by the fear of rejection or confrontation. Lisa may find herself second-guessing her thoughts, leading to impaired decision-making. The default reaction of deferring to others, particularly to a manipulator like Carl, erodes her confidence and nurtures a reliance on the very person, diminishing her self-worth. The toll of such dynamics extends into personal relationships as well. As Lisa continues to succumb to Carl's manipulation, she distances herself from friends and family. The emotional exhaustion caused by navigating a toxic work environment leaves little energy for her social life. A clear example can be seen in her interactions with her sister Mia, who has frequently expressed concern over Lisa's well-being. However, instead of reaching out for support, Lisa tends to deflect questions and choose isolation. This disconnection only deepens her feelings of loneliness, creating a cycle where she feels trapped, devoid of the very connections that could offer reassurance and strength. The battle with self-esteem is another significant aspect of the emotional fallout from manipulation. Individuals ensnared in toxic situations often internalize the negative feedback they receive, leading to a distorted self-image. Lisa may begin to believe that her work is subpar or that she is unworthy of respect as Carl's undermining comments take root in her psyche. Research shows that such manipulative experiences can significantly lower self-worth as victims start to view themselves through the negative lens cast by the manipulator's words. Over time, this self-perception can become a barrier to personal growth and fulfillment. People often fall victim to toxic manipulation due to a combination of factors, including a desire for acceptance, fear of conflict, or a history of poor boundaries. In Emma's case, after experiencing emotional upheaval in her past relationships, the affection and support she receives from Claire initially feel like a lifeline. Unfortunately, this vulnerability makes her susceptible to the manipulation that follows. Victims may find it difficult to discern between genuine caring and manipulation, often seeing the latter disguised as a sincere concern for their well-being. Understanding the deeply detrimental effects of emotional manipulation allows individuals to regain a sense of control over their lives. By recognizing the emotional, psychological, and relational impacts, those ensnared can begin to advocate for themselves and seek healthier environments. Acknowledging these dynamics is essential for anyone looking to reclaim their peace and ensure their relationships bring nourishment rather than toxicity. As we transition to the next part of this chapter, we will uncover the hidden warning signs of manipulation that frequently go unnoticed. By identifying these indicators early, you can protect yourself from becoming ensnared in toxic dynamics, ultimately enhancing your ability to foster healthier and more fulfilling relationships. Awareness of these warning signs will empower you to navigate interpersonal connections with confidence and clarity, allowing you to cultivate relationships rooted in respect and mutual support. Manipulators are skilled at identifying their targets, often selecting individuals who are empathetic, accommodating, or emotionally vulnerable. They use keen observation to discern who may be susceptible to their tactics, honing in on those who display traits such as a strong desire to please others or a history of personal struggles. Consider the case of Jenna, a compassionate and dedicated social worker. She often invests her time and energy into helping others, but this altruism makes her a perfect target for Charlotte, a colleague who feels insecure in her own role. Recognizing Jenna's nurturing nature, Charlotte positions herself as a friend in need, frequently turning to Jenna for support and validation. In the beginning, Jenna feels appreciated and valued, but subtle manipulations start to take shape. Charlotte begins to lean heavily on Jenna, requesting favors like covering her shifts or helping with her reports, framing it as a simple need for assistance. "I just can't handle this workload right now," Charlotte insists, which invokes Jenna's desire to help. Initially, Jenna is happy to assist, believing that this support fosters camaraderie. However, over time, Charlotte's requests escalate, creating a growing expectation of compliance. The subtle psychological shifts that occur during this manipulation are often imperceptible at first, but become increasingly pronounced. As Jenna finds herself unnecessarily burdened with additional responsibilities, she starts to feel overwhelmed and begins to question her worth. The encouragement she once derived from helping others turns into a sense of obligation and guilt. Jenna might start thinking, if I don't help Charlotte, then I'm letting her down, which creates an internal conflict that weighs heavily on her emotions. These tactics operate insidiously, making it difficult for victims to recognize themselves as targeted. Jenna may not immediately see that Charlotte is using her kindness for personal gain, nor does she realize how her reluctance to set firm boundaries has allowed manipulation to fester. In psychological terms, this creates a condition known as reactive attachment, where the victim forges false connections based on the perceived need for affirmation and approval. Research reveals that individuals caught in such manipulative dynamics often internalize a sense of inadequacy, believing they must sacrifice their own needs to gain appreciation from others. The preventative challenge lies in the manipulator's ability to present themselves as victims, those who need help or support, and masking their true intentions. Emma, another case study, faces similar dynamics in her friendship with Rachel, who plays the role of the supportive friend while covertly undermining Emma's confidence. Rachel's manipulative praise often contains a sting. You're so talented, but I can't help but think you could do even better. Emma mistakenly interprets this manipulation as constructive feedback rather than a tactic designed to keep her dependent on Rachel's validation. Recognizing these patterns is crucial for individuals seeking to guard themselves against emotional exploitation. The clearer individuals become about their boundaries and the tactics designed to erode them, the better equipped they will be to stand against manipulation. By understanding how these manipulative figures operate, victims can begin to dismantle the psychological hold these toxic individuals have over them. As we conclude this section, it is important to emphasize that understanding these tactics is the first step toward resistance. Victims must become attuned to the signs of manipulation and engage in proactive measures to assert their boundaries and reclaim self-worth. Moving forward, we will explore the escalation of control within manipulative relationships, revealing how behaviors intensify and bind victims in cycles of emotional entrapment. By being aware of these escalation patterns, individuals can develop strategies to protect themselves effectively, ensuring that they establish and maintain healthier, more authentic connections. To break free from the dark psychological tactics of manipulation, it is essential to implement a robust counter-strategy centered on establishing clear boundaries combined with self-empowerment. The act of setting boundaries is not merely about saying no to unwanted demands. It is about redefining what is acceptable behavior in your relationships and communicating that firmly. By understanding your limits and articulating them effectively, you can reclaim autonomy over your emotional and social space. Begin by reflecting on your core values and what behaviors you are willing to accept from others. Write down specific instances that have made you uncomfortable or anxious. This practice not only sheds light on your personal thresholds, but serves as a tactile reminder of your needs and rights. For example, if Lisa, who has been manipulated by Rachel, consistently feels drained after interactions, she should ask herself why that's happening. Through this reflection, Lisa can identify that her limit is being pushed when Rachel demands her time without reciprocation. Defining what behaviors cross the line will make it easier for Lisa to articulate her boundaries in future conversations. Once you have assessed your boundaries, practice asserting them in a calm and confident manner. When someone oversteps, such as when Claire repeatedly asks Jenna to cover for her without acknowledgement, the appropriate response might be, "I cannot assist with this right now. I need to focus on my responsibilities." This statement is direct yet respectful, reinforcing that your time and efforts are valuable. Such clarity eliminates ambiguity, making it more difficult for manipulators to exploit your kindness or willingness to help. Furthermore, trusting your instincts plays an invaluable role in breaking free from manipulation. Manipulators thrive in environments filled with uncertainty and self-doubt. Acknowledging your feelings is crucial. If something feels off in your interactions, that sense is worthy of your attention. It is a signal that should prompt you to evaluate the situation and respond accordingly. For instance, if Emma feels increasingly uneasy when interacting with Rachel due to her condescending tone, it's essential that she addresses why these feelings arise instead of dismissing them. By attuning yourself to your emotional responses, you empower yourself to act rather than react. In tandem with trusting your instincts, practicing mindfulness can greatly enhance your clarity. This technique involves being present in the moment, recognizing your emotional state without judgment, and clarifying the thoughts running through your mind. By creating space to process your feelings, you build resilience against manipulation, allowing you to stand firm against tactics that seek to undermine your confidence. Exercises such as journaling or meditation can also cultivate this awareness, solidifying your understanding of your boundaries and emotional landscape. Regaining clarity is not only liberating, it is essential for dismantling the harmful effects of manipulation. The knowledge that you are in control of your interactions and that asserting yourself is not only acceptable but necessary can be profoundly empowering. Each time you exercise your boundaries and trust your instincts, you weaken the grip that manipulators have on your life. Understanding these tactics grants you a sense of agency that is vital for personal growth. Once you embrace and utilize these strategies, you will find yourself evolving beyond the shadows of manipulation. The strength you cultivate by asserting your boundaries will propel you forward into healthier and more fulfilling relationships where your worth is honored and respected. With this awareness and practice, you will never be controlled in the same way again. Embrace this empowering journey. Your liberation starts now. As we conclude this exploration of psychological manipulation and the powerful strategies to reclaim your peace, it's essential to remember the key insights we've uncovered throughout this journey. We delved into the dynamics of emotional manipulation, identified the subtle tactics employed by manipulators, and emphasized the critical importance of setting firm boundaries. Through real-life scenarios, we've illustrated how these manipulations impact emotions, decision-making, and self-esteem, and we provided practical counter-strategies to empower you in regaining control over your relationships. By fostering self-awareness, trusting your instincts, and asserting your boundaries, you can break free from toxic cycles and cultivate healthier interactions. Thank you for taking the time to engage with this content. Your journey toward emotional empowerment and resilience is commendable. If you found this video enlightening, please consider liking it, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to create valuable resources that encourage personal growth and awareness. Together, we can build a community dedicated to overcoming manipulation and fostering genuine connections.